guest is one of the stars of the hit Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma. He's also a former Google consultant who says banning President Trump could signal the beginning of the end for these companies. Joining me now is Joe Toscano. Joe, I really enjoyed the documentary. Talk about a dilemma. We are in this situation today. Why do you think it's the beginning of the end for the companies?
Hey, Dana. Yeah, thank you for having me. I've spoken with Brian Flood about this a little bit on news on Fox as well, and I think that the big thing here is we're reaching the end of what would be perfection of control, with social media, right? They have all of these laws for their platform through terms of service, which is great, and I think that they did make a stance to uphold them. The real problem is that they haven't been upholding them for so long, and I think what this is a virtue signal that they now feel accountable. And if they are accountable for their content, I think it's going to lead into a bigger discussion about Section 230, their rights as to whether or not they are publishers. And let's just be fair. These content platforms, they're not built to be publishers. That's why they fought so hard for the last 4 or 5 years to not be labeled publishers. And I think as we head down this road, as you just mentioned with investors, I think we're going to hit this point to where there's going to be larger conversations these companies don't want to have. And it is going to be the beginning of the end for them unless they make some really serious decisions and change their business model.
Joe, take a listen to Tim Cook. He was on CBS yesterday saying this.
Yeah.
Parler has some issues with moderation. There are some incitement to violence examples on there, and they need to step it up on the moderation. And our hope is that they do that and get back on the store. We have terms of service for our app store, and some of those terms of service he's in violation of. All we're asking Gail is that he meet the terms of service.
Joe, I'm thinking about some of these big servers, right, like an Apple or a Google, or even Amazon. Instead of deplatforming these sites, alternatives, what about helping them? I mean, do you think that that would be in their interest to try to say to Parler, okay, look, here's 5 things you need to do. We'll try to help you to do them. We need you to do them within 48 hours, something like that, so that it's not just a total shutdown of an alternative, because that does look anti-competitive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and Apple is under antitrust investigation for their control of their app store right now. That's not even a question, right? It's a problem, and we're debating it in real time. I agree. I've never used Parler. It's not my source of information, but I completely agree. These companies, especially from the stance of the antitrust investigation, any of these free speech investigations that are sure to come, I think they would be much better off to take a stance to where let's work together and let's figure out how we make the situation better. I think, at the current moment, they made a decision that they felt they needed to make, and it is within the bounds of their terms of service, but that might not have a good effect for them. And I think they'd be better off to work cooperatively to improve the situation. And I think that's what, this moment in time is all about right now. We're trying to figure out how we reunite as a country, and part of this has to come with these companies cooperating and working together to make the situation better.
Let me ask you this. How likely is it, based on your experience, that a competitive product to Twitter or Facebook could be created and actually succeed at scale?
Well, I would say in terms of can it be created, yes, we've already seen that. Snapchat was quite the competitor back, 4 or 5 years ago when it first took off. TikTok has caused some problems for these platforms as well in terms of competition. Now, it's not an easy task by any means. That's, free market innovation has never been easy. But is it possible? Absolutely. I think including the fact that these companies are going to go through heavy litigation, whether it's antitrust, freedom of speech, whatever else comes out of this, I think what we're going to see is a large net of litigation cast over these companies, which will slow them down. I think if there are amendments to, say, Section 230, if there's a reclassification of publisher status or not, that could really harm them fundamentally because, like I said, they're not built for that. And all of this, I believe, is going to slow them down enough that we're going to see free market innovation circumvent them the same way, MySpace.
Let me ask you a final question, Joe. I don't want to lose you. There's a lot of companies that have decided to move out of Silicon Valley. for lots of different reasons,
Yeah.
right? There might be taxes. It could be because they're looking to diversify their workplace, and I mean diversity of thought in addition to other diversity.
Yep.
Do you think that as some of these companies decide to leave Silicon Valley, that it might be eye-opening to them about how there are people that might disagree with them, but they have a right to have access to sites as long as they agree to the terms of service? I'm just wondering what you think about that. You live in that world. What about when people
100%.
finally get out of it?
That's why I left, actually, because I'm from Nebraska, and I felt that the workforce was not representative of our entire nation. I'm back home, and I'm working in rural America to help upskill laborers and prepare people for what I believe will be a revolution in the tech workforce in the coming decade. And I believe that as these companies exit Silicon Valley because of the high prices, the whatever it is, I believe they'll begin to get exposed to it. And I do think we will see change.
I didn't know you were from Nebraska, but now I know why I was drawn to you in that documentary, Midwestern Sensibilities. Thank you so much, Joe. We'll be back in touch.